Hello everyone, it's that time of year again, where the leaves are turning orange and yellow colors, everything is pumpkin flavored, and people go apple picking on weekends like it's their only sustenance for food for the next 3 months. That's right, it's Halloween time. And during this time of year, people like to read and watch all kinds of spooky stuff. I'm not too big of a straight horror fan movie-wise, but I do like to read the occasional spooky horror comic book. So in this video, I'm going to show you my favorite books that I like to read this time of year. Some are straight horror, some are mostly adventure books with scary mystical stuff, but watch and enjoy, and I hope you pique your interest in trying out some of these books. First up, we have Swamp Thing. No surprise, I'm wearing this t-shirt here. House of Secrets, first appearance of Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is a character that's been in DC Universe for a long time, since the early 70s. He started out as a Monster of the Week type character. He was created for the series House of Secrets, where it's just kind of a new Monster of the Week type every issue. But it's kind of something stuck with him. It's a very Frankenstein's monster type story. He's created in a lab by accident, and he's trying to find purpose in his world. People assume he's a monster and a killer just because of the way he looks, but actually he's very nice and kind. And the stories created by Len Wein during the 70s were mostly of that vein, just him wandering around being a monster, helping people that he encounters. But over the years, since that first appearance, he's gotten a couple series, and Len Wein, the creator, and various artists built up a nice mythos and legend to this character to make him more dimensional than just a monster of the week. Eventually he evolves into being a protector of the green, which is the earth has multiple different elements like rot, wood, death, green, red. He protects all the plant life on the planet. And every or so generation, there is a new protector of the green. So that's Swamp Thing. I'm only reading right now just the Len Wein Bronze Age omnibus, which is a giant, beefy book here. I haven't gotten to the Alan Moore stuff. I know I was probably a big faux pas being an avid comic book reader, but I will get to it. I know that Alan Moore revitalized a character and brought him back into a new generation in the 80s. So I will get to those eventually, but for now, I enjoy reading these. They're very quick reads. They're old school, so the stories seem kind of simple at first, but the art is gorgeous, and it's just filled with all beautiful 4-color comic book goodness from the 70s. So I recommend starting here. If you're a new reader and you want to try Swamp Thing, go with this first before jumping in head first into the Alan Moore stuff, which can get a little bit heavy. But yeah, check it out. Swampy. Up next, we have Hellboy. And I'm going to cover a little bit of the BPRD as well, too. But Mike Mignola's creation, Hellboy, in the early 90s was pretty unique, but yet felt old at the same time, if that makes sense. It's a brand new character in the early mid-90s. I will admit during that time, I was not reading it. I only had a little bit of money from my allowance at the time to read comic books, and Dark Horse books were a bit on the pricier side, so I didn't read it. Plus, I just, wasn't all that interested in it. What got me into Hellboy was honestly Guillermo del Toro's movie back in the early 2000s. When I saw that, I immediately just connected with it. Such a cool story, such a cool character. And Mike Mignola, the creator, artist, and writer, you can tell he is influenced by all kinds of folktale and folklore from around the world. Hellboy basically is just, he was attempted to be summoned by the Nazis during World War II, but the Allies intercepted him and raised Hellboy to be a good guy, and in the end he is the lead agent for the BPRD. Bureau of Paranormal Research and Defense. So any kind of monster story or ghosts or hauntings, they're called in to investigate, and which usually ends up Hellboy beating the crap out of some monsters or anything, and all kinds of other things. His character is just so funny. You would think he's one-dimensional, but he's not. He's a lot going on. Apparently, you know, I don't want to spoil anything, but his character is destined to be the end worlder, you know, the one to end the world of all time, and he refuses to give into that and fights off his destiny because he wants to choose his own path. And along the way, we meet the rest of the BPRD, which, you know, Hellboy always had his own series. These first two volumes of the trades I have, you can tell how big up they are because I reread them a lot. But you know, eventually the story moves into a series called BPRD, where we follow the tales of the rest of the team here. And that's what I love about this series. It's not just Hellboy by himself; it's a team book. You know, we have BPRD agents, human, and all the monsters like Ape Sapien, who's really such a cool character, Liz Sherman, Johann Kraus, all really cool stories and set into all kinds of different lore. Each kind of book has its own set story, but there is an overarching plot that connects everything, dealing with Rasputin. Yes, the same Rasputin, who was trying to summon Cthulhu-type monsters and their battle against him. There are a lot of volumes of BPRD. The first giant story arc is called Plague of Frogs, and if you're collecting the omnibuses, there's 4 volumes of this, and then it moves into BPRD Hell on Earth, which is you know, a whole other big story that I have yet to finish. So there is a lot of content out there, but I would recommend just starting right here with the first volume, Seed of Destruction. This collects Hellboy's first few appearances for stories, and if you're on Comixology like I am, limited, most of Hellboy's single stuff's available for free in the unlimited side, so you can check them out there. So yeah, pretty good time, really spooky. It's also kind of a little bit funny, with a good twist of adventure. I highly recommend Hellboy. Up next, we have Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's Batman: Death of the Family. This is a messed up story. It's written by Scott Snyder, who during the New 52 Batman era. I will say that his run on Batman during that era, probably one of the best. And I know that in future people are going to be talking about his run the same way they talk about any other classic writers' runs on Batman. Him and Greg Capullo took Batman to, you know, for something somewhere new and different during the New 52. Scott Snyder is a horror writer, so seeing Batman and reading Batman through the lens of a horror writer made it like must read. Every issue, couldn't put it down or couldn't wait. The first 2 volumes dealt with Court of Owls, and that has some horror elements as well too, but this one here, volume 3, is a straight horror movie. He took the Joker character, which, you know, he's a normal crazy agent of chaos character, does whatever, and just made him even more terrifying. So this story here is just about Joker just losing it even further to the point where his Harley Quinn and his other, you know, friends or whatever, Joker has any friends, but couldn't even recognize him or didn't understand what the point of all his insanity he was doing here. This Joker look is very scary. He cut off his face and stapled it back on, so he's wearing a mask with his own skin. Very freaky. And the Batman family was rocked. They didn't know how to handle this. So it's very creepy, very scary. If you want to read the whole story, it's all contained in volume 3 of this run. You see here. All the main parts of the story are in this book. There is some peripheral issues from the other series like Nightwing, Batgirl, Robin that take part of it. Those add a little bit to the story, but are not essential. So you can get the full story here. You know, but I know DC has another collection where they collected everything into one big book, which, you know, you get a little bit of more oomph and more story in there. But this one is just a straight main story, and this is all you need, honestly. Up next, we have The Wake, another book written by Scott Snyder with art by Sean Murphy, who is one of my all-time favorite artists. This story here, I was on the fence about including it because it's not straight horror. The story takes place, there's 2 parts and it takes place in different times. The first part I would say is definitely horror. It's about a group of scientists on the water in an underwater base, doing experiments and just exploring the deepest parts of the ocean. The base is then attacked by these like mermaid creatures, but they're not just mermaids, they're more like underwater vampire creatures. And then it turns into, it's pretty much straight horror there. It's Abyss movie meets, anything else on the water. It's very creepy. The artwork complements the story well. There are very scary parts, and it's very imaginative, the artwork, and very cinematic, so you get drawn in, which is very cool, and I love this. The second part might throw you for a loop. It's a completely different story. It's more sci-fi, but yet it ties the 2 stories together. The first part is this horror underwater, people trying to escape a base, away from these mermaid creatures, and then the second part is the future, the after effects of this first part of the story, but hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, maybe even 1,000 years later. So it's like a sci-fi Waterworld type story. The artwork matches. Sean Murphy draws both parts, and they look a little different, but yet they gel together very well. And in the end, it completes one satisfying read. So I would definitely check it out if you're a fan of like The Abyss, stories like that on the water, and and then you like sci-fi post-apocalyptic stories set in Waterworld. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're the one friend that likes Waterworld, Kevin Costner movie. This book is for you. But I thoroughly enjoy it. I read it, like I said, every year. Sean Murphy's artwork is top notch, and I recommend picking it up. Here we have Something is Killing the Children by James Tynion and art by Werther Dell'Endera. So I want to make sure I pronounce his name right. This story is amazing. It is an ongoing story. It's currently in the single issues, I would say close to issue 18. And there are 3 volumes collecting these stories. This is a straight horror series. James Tynion writes horror very well. A lot of his books lean towards the horror side. But man, this from the first issue just got me and reeled me right in. The artwork by Werther here is fantastic. Very, very cinematic. To the point where each issue starts a few pages and then boom, you get the title shot. It's almost like you're watching an opening sequence of a TV show. And at times it feels like you're watching a TV show too, which I love. The story for this, is exactly what it sounds. There is a town in Midwest America where children are disappearing. The story starts off with a group of young boys in a sleepover. They're all hanging out. They all start making fun of the main character who says that he heard some monsters in his backyard, and they were like, that's all lies, bull crap. So, of course, what happens? They get dared and they go outside in the middle of the night looking for this monster, and just as the title says, something kills the children. And then this poor main character is just dealing with this. The town thinks he killed his friends and he's the killer, and no one believes that there was a monster tearing kids apart. Enter this strange character down here into the town who comes in saying she's going to kill the monster. And that kicks everything off from there. It is like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but not cheesy and stocky and like funny. It's very serious. With this kind of a buddy cop story of sorts. She comes in and kills the monster, and the young boy's helping her. He's helping himself deal with what happened to him as well as helping her kill these monsters. Really, really good. I'm pretty sure there are rumors that it's going to be put into a TV series. I wouldn't be surprised if it does, because it is tailor-made for like Netflix or HBO or something like that. So this book is the current book that I'm currently recommending to so many of my friends who don't read comics, because I know they'll like the story and I know they'll get into it. Especially if you like I said, Stranger Things and all kinds of series like that. This is right up that alley. It also has a little bit of a mix of like some I like Da Vinci Code-ish type stuff, where secret orders and things, and you know, they're involved in the story as well too, in a pretty creative way. So I would definitely say check it out. Don't be afraid, but be prepared, because, you know, just as the title says, there are kids that get killed in this book, and it gets pretty graphic at times. The last one I want to recommend is Rachel Rising by Terry Moore. Terry Moore is a writer and a cartoonist, so he writes and draws all his books. This right here is straight horror, and it's a pretty epic tale. You can see how big the book is. It's black and white, but it doesn't matter. Terry Moore is the living best cartoonist, I would say, now. He's been writing and drawing comics since the mid to late 80s. You know, all the series he's written and drawn is Strangers in Paradise, Echo, Motor Girl, all have been my favorite books. Anytime he writes something, a new series, I'm there with him. He's just a fantastic writer artist. Rachel Rising here is about a woman named Rachel. And for a few pages, she wakes up buried underground and scratches and claws her way out to the surface, only to realize that she was murdered by a serial killer and buried in the forest. She has no idea she was murdered. She has no idea that she's dead. She's not a zombie. She's not after brains or anything like that. She's just herself normally, but just dead. Her heart's not beating. There's nothing. Her eyes are like really black and weird. And what's creepy about this, if that wasn't creepy enough, is that she disappeared on like a Saturday night, and she gets out of the ground around like Monday morning. So nobody has any idea that she was killed. They just think she was just on a bender, and, you know, she's up and about the next day. And they just see that she's acting very strange. From there, Rachel goes into a long, epic, beautiful story, trying to solve her murder, basically. Who killed her? Who's killing her? Who's this serial killer that's attacking and killing women? And the story goes into, just like Terry Moore. Terry Moore's stories start with a simple premise and always go into this like wonderful area that you had no idea the story was going to go. Eventually we get into stuff like witches and the town history, and how what's so special about the town they live in, and even Lilith, and all kinds of vampire lore and tales, and all kinds of other creatures and things tied to this town. I can't recommend this book enough. I really love this story, and the artwork again is just incredible. Terry Moore just masterfully will take a story that's very, you know, like weird, like sci-fi, out of the ordinary, but yet the characters are still very human. We see their emotion, we see how they react to these incredible situations they're in, and his stories range from slice of life comedy to sci-fi epics to mysteries to horror now here. So he can write and draw it all. So I highly recommend anything by Terry Moore. In fact, I think I might do a video at some point all about his works, and how much they mean to me, because he's a very great artist. Fantastic. Rachel Rising. Check it out. So there you have it, folks. These are the books that I enjoy reading during Halloween time, and I would recommend to check them out. I'll put any information on these in the info, but feel free to reach out and just ask me any questions. You know, and this is just a couple. I have a bunch more, but I just wanted to just focus on the ones that I really enjoy the most. Maybe this could be something I do every year, or showcase different stuff. Thanks again. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you. Bye.